The rain that fell on the 15th of March was the kind that didn't apologize.
It came suddenly.
The way certain kinds of bad news arrive, without warning, without mercy, without any concern for the people it was about to destroy. It turned the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway into a river of confusion and blinding light, and it was on this road. At approximately 9:47 p.m., a truck driver who had been behind the wheel for 19 straight hours drifted across the center line. Emmanuel and Shade Okonkwo never saw it coming. They had been returning from a naming ceremony in Ibadan, laughing, probably, because that was the kind of couple they were.
Feet on the dashboard, the way she always did on long night drives, because she said it helped her stay awake to keep her husband company.
In the back seat, asleep under his father's old university jacket, was their 7-year-old son, Korede. He woke up in a hospital. He didn't understand what the white ceiling meant, or the beeping machines, or the nurse who came in and immediately called for a doctor when she saw his eyes open. Nobody answered.
He called for his father.
Still nothing. The doctor came, then a woman he didn't recognize, then another.
Her grandson was sitting up in the hospital bed with dry eyes and a silence around him that frightened her more than any crying would have.
Korede, there's something we need to tell you.
It's about your father.
Is he okay?
He's been hurt, but he's getting help.
We are here for you.
Korede, I'm going to take you home with me. You hear me? You are coming home with Grandma. You will never be alone.
He said nothing, but he let her hold. And Mama Terosa, 63 years old, retired school teacher,
Widow of 12 years, woman who had already buried a husband and now her only son.
held her grandson in that hospital room and made a silent promise to Emmanuel and Shade, wherever they now were, that she would spend whatever years God still had for her making sure their boy was loved.
She kept that promise. For a long time, she kept it completely. Mama Teresa's house in Abeokuta was small, but it was hers. Built by her late husband with his own savings. Maintained by her with her teacher's pension.
Full of the particular warmth that comes from a home that has been genuinely loved for decades, she gave Korede his uncle's old room. She painted it his favorite color, blue.
I knew you'd love it.
Using money she had been saving for a new mattress, she enrolled him in the best primary school her pension could manage. She woke up an hour earlier every morning to make him hot breakfast before school.
Because his mother had mentioned once, years ago, that Korede didn't like eating cold food in the morning. She had remembered. She attended every school event.
Every prize-giving day, every sports competition, sitting in the sun with her wrapper and her good umbrella, cheering louder than any other parent in the crowd. When he was sick, she sat by his bed through the night.
The shadows are chasing me again.
Shh, it's all right. I'm here now.
Tell me about them.
Your mother loved to sing, and your father, he was so strong.
Emmanuel, a stubborn, brilliant child. Shade, the beautiful, determined woman. She walked into their family and made it better.
She kept their photographs on the wall so Korede would grow up knowing their faces. She did all of this on a pension that was never quite enough, supplementing it by tutoring neighborhood children on evenings and weekends.
Selling fabric at the market on Saturdays. Quietly going without things she needed so that Korede could have what he needed instead. The neighbors knew. The church knew.
Everyone in that street knew what Mama Teresa was doing, and what it cost her, and how she did it without a single word of complaint. The change in Korede did not happen suddenly. That is the thing nobody tells you about ingratitude. It rarely arrives all at once. It grows slowly.
Like mold in a place you're not checking. Invisible until it has already spread further than you realize. It started small. By the time he was 14, he had stopped saying thank you. Gradually, the food Mama Teresa put in front of him became something he was owed rather than something she had prepared. Gradually, the food Mama Teresa put in front of him became something he was owed rather than something she had prepared.
The school fees she struggled to pay became an inconvenience when they came with secondhand textbooks instead of new ones.
By 16, he had friends his grandmother didn't like.
Boys with money they hadn't worked for and attitudes they hadn't earned. He started coming home late, started looking at the small house with different eyes. Eyes that had learned to see what wasn't there instead of what was.
Your friend's parents have cars.
He said one evening, when Mama Teresa was returning from the market,
My friend's parents have cars. We have nothing.
We have this house. We have food. We have your school. We have each other.
that's what poor people say.
Then she picked up her groceries and followed him in and made his dinner without saying another word about it. By 18, he had dropped out of the polytechnic she had borrowed money to enroll him in.
By 19, he was involved in things she couldn't name and didn't want to. He brought strange people to the house at odd hours. He spoke to her with a dismissiveness that made the neighbors wince when they heard it through the walls. One woman on the street, Mama Kahinde, who had watched Korede grow up, stopped him outside one afternoon.
That woman in there sacrificed everything for you.
You know what she did when you had malaria at age 9? She sold her gold earrings, the ones her husband gave her, to pay for your treatment. Did she ever tell you that?
Mind your business. It was a boy called Rasak who first put the idea in his head. Rasak was 22, unemployed, and had spent the last 3 years orbiting various schemes that promised everything and delivered nothing. He had the particular confidence of someone who had never been held accountable for anything and had mistaken this for wisdom. They were sitting behind a compound one evening when Rasak leaned over and spoke quietly.
He had a contact, he said. A man. The kind of arrangement where you brought two things or someone, and in return wealth came. Permanent wealth. Life-changing wealth. What kind of someone? Someone close to you.
Someone whose loss people won't look too hard at. Someone old.
Korede was quiet for a long time.
He thought about the small house, the peeling paint, the secondhand everything. He thought about his friends who had money and the life he believed he deserved and had somehow been denied. He did not think about a woman waking up an hour early every morning to make a little boy breakfast. He did not think about gold earrings sold to pay a hospital bill. He did not think about a grandmother sitting in the sun at every single school event, cheering louder than anyone. He had decided, somewhere along the way, that none of that counted. Okay. I will not describe what happened in detail because some things do not deserve the dignity of full description. What I will tell you is this.
Mama Teresa had cooked his favorite meal that evening, pepper soup with goat meat, the way she always made it on Fridays.
Here you are, my dear. It looks how you like it.
A tradition she had maintained since he was 7 years old and first came to live with her. She had set the table properly. She had been humming to herself in the kitchen. She had no idea. She trusted him completely. Even now, even after everything. Because that is what grandmothers like Mama Teresa do.
They keep the door of their love open.
Long after any reasonable person would have closed and locked it. The neighbors heard nothing. Korede was gone. By afternoon, a neighbor who had not seen Mama Teresa at her usual morning spot by the gate went to check. What she found, she never fully recovered from.
Nothing. The man Rasak had promised did not exist in the way Rasak had described. Produced nothing. The wealth did not come. Not a single naira. Not a sign. Not a whisper of the promised fortune. Because that is the oldest lie in the world. That you can trade something sacred for something material and come out ahead. It has never worked. It will never work. The universe keeps better accounts than any of us realize.
Korede ran. He thought running would save him.
It did not.
Because the other thing about small communities, about streets where neighbors know each other, about churches where a woman has attended faithfully for 30 years, about markets where a grandmother is known and loved, is that they notice, they remember, they talk, and they do not forgive. The neighbor who found Mama Teresa that morning called her son. Her son called the police. The police came. And the case moved with an urgency that surprised Korede when they found him 3 weeks later in a city he thought was far enough. Because when a community loves someone the way that street loved Mama Teresa, The search does not stop. He was brought back. He stood in a courtroom. He looked for sympathy in the faces around him and found none. Not from the judge, not from the community, not from his late parents' remaining relatives, who sat in the gallery and looked at him with a grief so deep it had moved past tears into something colder. Not even from Rasak, who had cooperated fully with investigators the moment his own comfort was threatened. Because that is the other thing about people who whisper evil ideas into willing ears. They are never actually willing to share the consequences. Korede stood alone, as he had made himself. The small blue house in Abeokuta stood empty for a while. Then the church community, who had known Mama Teresa for 3 decades, organized a proper burial.
The whole street came. The market women came. Former students she had taught came. Now adults with their own children, who had never forgotten the teacher who had stayed after hours to help them, who had bought exercise books for the ones whose parents couldn't afford them. They came in numbers that filled the church and spilled outside.
They told stories about her. Good ones. True ones. The kind of stories that are the only real monument any of us leave behind.
One woman stood up and said,
She used to say that the greatest investment a person can make is in another person. She invested everything she had in that boy. The investment failed, but the investor, Mama Teresa herself, was never the failure. She gave exactly what she was supposed to give. She loved exactly as she was supposed to love. What he did with it was his choice, and his alone. And he will carry it.
Indifferent to human tragedy, but somehow, in its persistence, insisting that life goes on.
The blue paint on the small house was peeling.
There was nobody left to repaint it.
But on the street, 3 families were quietly discussing what should be done with the house. Whether it could become something,
A small library, maybe?
a tutoring center, something that kept Mama Teresa's spirit of teaching alive in the neighborhood she had served for so long.
Something that meant her years had built something that outlasted the one who tried to destroy it. Because that too is how the universe keeps its accounts. In memory of every grandmother who gave everything and asked for nothing. You are seen. You are remembered. You deserved better.
The good deposits remain, long after the one who made withdrawals is gone.